Well, I used to have 4. Now I have 3. My old guy, he had to
Oh
leave
no, I'm
us.
sorry.
Yeah, he had to leave us. He waited until we got home from Vegas, and then
Oh no.
I'm pretty sure he waited for us.
So it just happened. Oh, I'm so sorry. That
Oh,
is
it's
that is
okay.
very difficult.
It was okay. It's good to have 3 more. It really helps, trust me.
Yeah.
But when I
Oh,
came home, anyway, we're live, whatever. It doesn't matter. The
okay.
listeners,
You can tell me
for the
later. You can
for the
tell me
2 listeners, it's fine. When we
later.
came home, oh, I had to go into town for hearings. I had to go in person. And
Mhm.
so he had gone down in flames and whatever, and so my husband took care of everything. So when I
Mm,
got home, he, all the dogs he and Ruby usually pulled up to say hi. The other 2 clowns have to stay in the house because they can't be trusted. So to bolt and create havoc in the neighborhood. So I
yes.
drove up and it was just Ruby, and I was
Mm,
really then it was like, "Oh, man." I was really sad. I kind of broke down just he's
yeah.
part of our team.
Of
He's part of
course.
our unit. It's like our
Hey.
whole family, and so he's gone, but I'm okay. He's right over there. I can see him.
Oh,
And, yeah, it was time to go. He was 12, and I didn't want him to suffer. I made my last dog suffer because I couldn't let go, and he ended up
yeah.
suffering, and that was just selfishness on my part. So,
Well,
anyway,
Elizabeth, my condolences. I'm sincere,
I'm
sincere.
really it's okay, Joe. I'm
Yeah.
actually not too my that other dog that I had when I had the dog in law school, I was a mess. I could not
Oh,
I could took me a year to recover.
yes.
But,
I had a similar experience, by the way, in my last year of law school. Yeah. My dog at the time passed away, right? Like in September before my first class. I remember we had just put her down, and I had a Saturday
Mhm.
class because I went to law school on the weekends and at night because I worked. And so it was a Saturday, and I remember we put her down. And after the class, well, no, now I remember. Yeah, she was really struggling, and then after the class, we got in the car and went, and she was put down, and that was really sad. Or yeah.
Mm, 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 mm. It's a he or a she. It doesn't really matter these
Right,
days.
right, right. Yeah, I
I
know gender. I'm sure they don't care about what pronouns we call them.
They really don't.
Yeah, right.
They don't. They don't have these issues, which is nice.
Yes, yes.
So, this week we're moving on. We're conquering here. We missed last week. Did we miss last week? I don't know.
Yes, you were Las Vegas.
Oh, I was in Las Vegas. Yeah, that was great. So, going back to the dog,
Mm-hmm.
I actually got him on my way home from Vegas
Oh,
one in 2012.
okay.
And so
Yeah.
this time when I got home from Vegas, he left us, but he did wait for us to get home.
Uh,
I think he waited for us because
yeah.
my brother-in-law was saying, guys, like, what am I going to do if something happens to Lou while you're gone? I go, no, it'll be okay. If not, we said just bury him. Like there's nothing else you can do, right?
Yeah.
But he waited for us to get home.
Okay.
Um, and he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay with us, but
Yeah.
he wasn't. He didn't do well. Once we got home, I think it was okay for him to really go downhill once he saw us. I don't know. You know how dogs are. We think they don't have like souls, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. I don't buy that either. I think all dogs go to heaven too. I really believe that.
Well, or they pass on to another realm,
Yeah.
perhaps maybe the human realm.
Hmm. That's yeah. I have an open mind about all that stuff.
And quite frankly, I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, strategy 5, sorry, last week was all about my husband, sort of. but he had a big conference, so I went with him. And
Very
then
good.
strategy 5 this week,
Mm-hmm.
get out of the prison gang. So I wanted to, if anybody's watching this show, please like and subscribe. That would really help get it out to the remaining populace of families that might be trying to figure out the parole process and
Yes, indeed.
just about life in general, right?
That's
And
right.
the the book. So I did also have my client, Mr. Clemena. He was going to come on. It's Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
He's only been out of prison he's been out of prison a couple years, a year or so, and his family asked him to join them at the cemetery of his mother for
Sure.
Mother's Day, and he said that he would come to the show because he made a promise to me, and I said no. I said, you're going to go and be with your family.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
he probably will join us next week when we talk about the next chapter, even though the gang thing is kind of one of the ways that he was going to help us, because you and I are not gang experts, but we try to be.
Right.
So anyway, I think the key points from the chapter, Joe, when I read it, is just number one, that gang membership is dangerous. It's also challenging to leave the gang once you start.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that haven't started, that don't, but usually you and I are always in the situation of advising you can't get paroled unless you leave the gang entirely. You can't be 1 foot in even and 1 foot out.
Correct.
And how to disengage from the gang. Now that's a big topic for our clients to talk with their counselors, the gang unit investigators, and it has to be done extremely carefully in most situations. However, a lot of these days now, the gangs are letting you move on without any formal process because
Is
they'll
that
just
right?
say, yes.
Huh.
So
Because
what
that's kind of news to me because I don't, but tell us more.
Okay, so back in the day, there was no leaving. You
Mm-hmm.
knew that, and we knew that. There was just no leaving. You couldn't leave. It was some mottos. Some gangs were blood in, blood out, and you had to be jumped in, jumped out, and you couldn't leave. And now, I don't know. It's a softer world for the gangs. You can leave if you give clear indications of leaving and you understand there's no more protection for you. And if you're caught doing anything after the fact that's gang like, and it's interesting that the prison gangs have this gang like rule. For instance, if you're caught with a cell phone, if you're caught with drugs, if you're using drugs, because they figure we run all that stuff. And so
Yeah.
now you're going back to us to get that stuff in essence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's consequences there. And
Wow.
so you don't want to do that. And so that's the method now for getting out. Now that leads us to a different topic, obviously, and that is some gangs that don't require this sort of informal process through them, even if you don't debrief or sign documents going S&Y or whatever it is. Um, some gangs don't have that necessarily, and so it's a lot harder to find that bright line to show the parole board that I'm gone, because they'll ask you, how do we know that you're gone? How does an officer know you're gone? Does
Yeah.
your gang know you're gone? Who knows you're gone? Or did you just say it in your mind and then you went off and did it? Because they want something concrete for them to
Exactly.
have proof, not just come in and say, oh, yeah, I'm out of the gang. So if your activity still looks like you're in the gang, even if it's just hanging out at the lunch table or whatever
Yeah.
day
Or I just play
room,
sports with them.
Oh, I was just playing basketball. It's a
Yeah.
no. It's an NO. You can't do it because there's always talk of gang activity during the game, usually, or off on the sides, or whatever it is. Or someone's looking. They go, oh, he's happy to play basketball with gang members. So he
Yes.
must be a gang member. There goes the confidential entry. The
Mm-hmm.
confidential entry is put in, and now you've got to answer for that. And you say, well, I was just playing basketball. And the commissioners are not going to accept that. Just not. Because part of your relapse prevention plan is one of my triggers is hanging around with gang members. So
Exactly.
why would you hang around with gang members if
Mm-hmm.
you are trying to get away from gangs, not be triggered by gangs, and most importantly, getting out of prison? The other thing about it is you mentioned back to your book. So some of the steps for disengaging, really, Joe and I are not the experts. If you officially need to do debriefing or go SNY, you really need to ask a counselor, ask an officer, ask somebody to very quietly take you to some kind of an appointment that somebody else is not going to view as suspicious, and then tell them, I need to go see the dentist, and then tell the officer escorting you, I need to get out of the gang. I didn't want to do it in front of
Ah,
everybody. I'm going to the dentist right now, and then you're just taken off the yard, and then they'll do some things for you. Potentially, I mean, that's a potential option. Or
sure.
come visit your attorney. Your attorney says, get out of the gangs, and you say, okay, how? I said, call the escorting officer and let's have a conversation about safety issues and what your intentions are. So there are
Mm-hmm.
ways. There are ways. But I think before you take that step, you need to have the courage to do it. Where do you get the courage? Just start going to some groups, getting some confidence, being around some pro-social people that have already done it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's tricky. That's why Joe's saying in his book, just try to get out, but maybe not. Just don't go into the gangs at all if you can.
Yeah,
He
that's best. An
talks.
ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
It's so important here, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you talk also about the mental and emotional support that they're going to need. So once you get out of gangs, so if you debrief, say you're in the Mexican mafia, for instance, or you're Nuestra Familia, you're going to do probably, if you're in an official prison gang and you've been validated, a lot of times you have to do the debriefing. And part of the debriefing is you are offered counseling because you're essentially leaving a cult like environment. And to leave a cult like environment, you need some help, okay, to process that information and to deprogram your mind. And I think part of your chapter discusses plans for the future and after leaving the gang and what that might look like. So I want to turn it over to you. It's your book. And I want you to talk about any one of those topics or any other topic you think is really, really important in this chapter for our clients, family members, or anyone else listening to know about.
Sure. There's lots of things to talk about there. Um, First of all, it's part of getting out of a gang is part of the change. Offender change is so important. And that's what they look at today with their new decision making, streamlined decision making framework. And if somebody is in a gang, I mean, that's like automatically disqualifies them for parole at some level, well, at a key level. And it shows a nexus to criminal thinking. And I think if you're still ensconced in a gang, you're probably looking at a 5-year denial, easily. Definitely not a 3-year denial. And I mean, it goes to criminal thinking. I mean, there can't be any more clearer way of showing that you still think criminally if you're still entrenched in the gang, still connected to it, still doing things. It's futile. You might as well not even go to a hearing, actually, because there's no redeeming values about being in a gang. And, I'm not saying that you don't have reasons to be in a gang. People come to prison, they want protection, they want all the other accoutrements that come with being associated with a gang. And then they get, looking over their shoulder constantly, or you go and do this, or we're going to do that to you if you don't. So, first of all, where I'm getting at is, and this sounds overly simple, but it's key, is you have to make the decision to get out. And then, of course, there's so many different logistics, because it's not only telling the authorities that that's your plan and what you want to do, but then you have to look at retaliation, safety concerns for you. And I hear from many in that situation that they're concerned for the safety of their family as well. So it's a process, and it's not easy, but the bottom line is, it's number one, it's about changing who you are. And number two, the reality is, if you are still in a gang and you want to get back into the free community, there's no way to do it if you're still running with the gang. And like you said, Elizabeth, you can't have one foot in and one foot out. And that includes like just something simple like playing sports with them or talking to them, like, associating rather. And I hear people all the time say, well, I don't want to be disrespectful, whatever. But, if you're seen associating with them, that's the same thing pretty much to the authorities, that you're still involved at some level, even if it's just, I don't want to disrespect them. Okay, fine. But you can't be hanging out with them. Like I said in the book, you can't serve God and mammon. However you want to put it, that's what it is. You can't do both. You either do one or the other. And if you try to do both, you're going to do both pretty bad. You have to pick. You can't be half pregnant. You either are or you're not in the gang. So,
And the other thing too with that hanging out thing is that you are often, I haven't heard one client yet that didn't say he heard about people planning to commit some type of crime or other within the prison, either whatever it is. And the fact of the matter is, now you're around there, and a pro-social person would go and report it to authorities, like you and I would go and report something to, if we heard somebody planning to hurt another human being.
yeah.
Now you've put yourself in a position where you're not even following through and being pro-social. So you've again put another barrier on you. And the other thing about this gang thing that you mentioned, the 5-year denials, the 7-year denials, well, you can petition to advance. That's true, right?
Yeah.
But if you have one intervening slip up, big or small, you're going to eat the entire 5 years. And so you really don't want to walk into that parole hearing with a gang membership over your head. And you really need to start thinking about doing this when your loved ones, because they're not listening or allowed to listen, but you really need to start thinking about this before your consultation hearing when you come to prison. And that's why Joe's book, the title is so important. Get out now. Get out now. You want to start planning for this now, because you can't say meet with the lawyer and then say, well, give me a year and I'll try and get out of the gangs. But you still have to give the panel a lengthy period of positive rehabilitation. And 1 year isn't going to cut it. It's a good start, but you need to you need about 5 years clean if you've been an active gang member in that situation. And so that's really important. And
Exactly. And you're not just throwing that out as a random number. 5 years, that shows there's a pattern. I mean, after years of antisocial personality disorder, from before the age of 15 to however old they are today, whether they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, or sometimes 60s, um, the commissioners see that long enduring pattern of criminality, and so 2 or 3 years isn't going to cut it. They want to see a pattern of just the opposite.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And that
So you
pattern
leave
has
the
to
gang.
continue with
Yeah.
plans into paroles for continuing programming and relapse plans that address any kind of gang activity, and even not paroling back to the community you came from, where people are going to recognize you. You have to go somewhere new, hopefully for a fresh start.
Yeah, exactly. And just remember too, when you're still hanging out and maybe just doing some little light favor here and there,
Like what,
that
passing kites?
whatever,
Yeah.
that's right. I mean, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
There's ugly stuff in those kites, right? So
Right, right.
you know what's in
Yeah.
there. My clients that say, I didn't look at the kite. So you weren't born last night. You know what's in it,
Yeah.
or the flavor of what's in it. But you're hanging out with people that are going to continue to infect your mind with negativity, and you're already in the gang because you're easily brainwashed to begin with. You are
Mm-hmm.
easily manipulated because you have low self-worth, low self-esteem,
Yeah.
little value for your life or anybody else's life. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you're still infected, you're going to be infected with that mentality over and over and over again. Okay, it's going to be very hard to break free without some additional deprogramming efforts, i.e., via the self help programming. And these people are they're the same as you. Okay. What my clients have told me are the crabs in the bucket. So you're a crab in the bucket. And when you're trying to get out of the bucket, you're the sharp crab in the bucket trying to climb his way out. The other crabs, not nature, the other crabs pull you back down.
Yeah.
Okay. They
Mm-hmm.
pull you back down. And this example is for so many reasons, even if it's just your own mind not transforming itself. I sit down with former gang members and talk to them, and they still talk like a gang member. So they're not
Mm-hmm.
doing the gang activity, but their words give themselves away. They're still withholding information. They still have the don't volunteer information attitude, don't show vulnerability, don't talk about your feelings. And
Oh no.
all of that is required for a parole board to feel like, hey, I'm going to give you a chance because you're willing to just open up and lay it all out on the line. So you have that issue to overcome, and that takes years. It takes years to deprogram yourself, meaning your clients, loved ones, from gang activity. Just have to be careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, years,
It's like you
years.
can take the incarcerated person out of the gang, but you can't take the gang out of the incarcerated person.
Not without a lot of work. And
Exactly.
then it does happen, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen. Oh, I left the gang 2 months before my parole hearing. No, that won't
Yeah.
happen. And then after the parole hearing, and you've got your 5 year denial, now you've got to try and claw your way out. And you're going to probably have to do that whole 5 years. So why not ask your family member who's in prison to start now. Maybe they don't leave today, but maybe the seed is planted.
There you
And
go.
the other thing is addiction, addiction, addiction. So what is that? 12-step programming says it started with alcoholics, right? So I'm an alcoholic. Alcohol makes my life unmanageable. But really, what makes your life unmanageable is unaddressed character defects and flaws, which result in you using alcohol as a coping strategy, which then makes your life unmanageable. And this applies to every single addiction that not only people in prison have, we all have these addictions, okay, to everything. Our
Hmm.
ego is a powerful driving force of negativity for across the board:
Yeah.
fear, attachment, lack, low self-esteem, which is part of lack, competition, which is another lack-based mentality as well. But you can't you need to be able to come to the board and really talk about that addiction that you had to being a gang member to cope with your character defects of whatever it was, XYZ. And then the gang naturally you develop crimes. You're just not hanging out in the garage, right? You're just not
Yeah.
hanging out on the basketball court. There's a mission involved in these with these gangs, and it's ultimately about money. And so they control all this stuff going on down here, but they always get the money. So in the end, the drugs, the whatever it is, the whatever racket they're running, whatever benefit you're getting from it, someone's benefiting from it. Not It's not just a power trip, but a lot of times it is. But somebody's profiting off of your loved one's, allegiance. There's the cult, the head of the cult, and then there's the little cult slaves that give everything to the cult for nothing in return.
Yes. I love your use of the word cult because that's exactly what it is. It's the whole mind frame thing and allegiance to that entity, which is not founded like in reality, at least in the community, you know?
Well, there's gangs in the community as well, and they're
Yeah.
looking for you. They prey on the weak.
Yes. And your
Okay.
weakness, like of giving you whatever you're lacking, acceptance, like you said, the whole litany of things. And they look at it also as glamorous, uh,
Mhm. Again,
cars,
that's another
drugs, women.
ego-based issue,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Our ego wants us to be obsessed with material things,
Yeah.
status, reputation, competitiveness. I'm not good enough without the gang. I'm in jeopardy. I fear-based mentalities and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's all. They just feed off of it.
Hmm.
And I'll get back to my Satan's frequency, which is what I think it is. I don't mince my words there. It's just you're on sacred Satan's frequency if you're in a
Oh,
gang.
yeah. I didn't get the word Satan at first, but yeah, clearly.
Mhm.
There's evil and there's
It's a
good. And
because it's a mind infestation. That's what I mean by Satan. It's just it's infected your mind with lies.
yes,
That's what Satan is, right? He's the great adversary.
absolutely. And there's no moral compass once you give in to that.
It's all selfishness, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, I had to hurt the other inmate because I didn't want to be hurt. It's like, okay, well, selfishness there, number one, is a character defect, and then you're not willing to just go and tell the authorities, like, he's in danger, and now I'm in danger because I told about him being in danger, so we both probably you need to help us, you know.
Yes.
And they brainwash you to believe certain things as well about leaving the gang. And this is a big topic, and that is, well, I can't go S&Y because there's a bunch of child molesters. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so
Clearly, I hear that.
it's none of your business anyway. Who cares?
Right.
Because infected to say if you're a child molester, Satan tells you through the gang that they need to be harmed in some way and they cannot be forgiven for harming their certain victims. That's unforgivable. But what you do is forgivable.
Yeah,
Stabbing
that is so
10,
ironic.
10,
That is so
12
ironic.
people on the yard, hurting someone else's family members. That's apparently forgivable.
Yes.
And it also shows when you're not willing to do that, a lack of empathy. What is a lack of empathy related to? Antisocial personality disorder. What does antisocial personality disorder say? You don't care about anybody else. You're callous. You disregard the rights of others, etc. And so the board is just looking at you going, your gang membership and mentality means you're still antisocial. You came in antisocial. You still have antisocial personality disorder that's been unaddressed. And you're going to continue to have antisocial personality disorder. There's no cure for it. You can only do what we do in the 12-step program, which is identify and admit that there's a problem and vow to use all of the steps on a daily basis to overcome it every single day and know that this, whatever addiction you have, is cunning, baffling, and powerful. So it's the same for gangs. It's really one of the worst things that you can have on your record. I think the worst, probably. And it's talked about every single time. If
Oh
there's
yeah.
any slight indication. And by the way, the parole definition of gang is not the street definition of a gang, and it's not the prison definition of a gang. The parole definition of a gang is 2 or more people engaged in criminal activity.
Yes.
So if you engage in restitution fraud with somebody else's family member and some other inmate, even if you've never been a gang member, the commissioners are going to get after you and ask you, do you think that's gang mentality? Some of them.
Yes. And criminal thinking and gang mentality. Exactly. So, some of them will.
So it's not 3 or more people like a street gang for a trial with colors and tattoos and gang slogans and all this other stuff and neighborhoods. It's not that definition. That's a trial definition. That commissioners do not care about that. I tried those trial definitions on the commissioners. You never seen so many eyes roll in a room when I tried that.
I'm not surprised.
Yep. And the prison validation issue is also separate and a little trickier. Okay, so they validate based on photos and old photos and different things like that. But it does somewhat cross over. You do actually have to be a somewhat of a member, but the commissioners are not interested in hearing that you are so-called not a member because nobody officially made you a member or nobody made you an associate. That's just the gang code that you're not allowed to reveal or whatever because they've got their rules. We never made you a member. It's like, but in the boardroom, you're a member. If you're on the basketball court, hanging out, shooting the breeze about committing crimes, likely you are a member. So be
It
very,
reminds me, like from law school, there was de jure and de facto, and they're de facto gang members. It's like,
that's really good. Yeah. De facto gang members.
mhm.
Yep.
Because they do everything, as the saying goes, if it looks like chicken and it smells like chicken, it probably is chicken.
Right.
Yeah, we
That's
could
the
use.
way the commissioners see it, no matter
Yes,
what. And you can argue all day long. I'm not a
exactly.
member. I don't know why this chrono was put in there. This confidential memo was put in there. I'm not a gang member. It's because you were in the day room during a conversation that was going on about hurting someone, selling drugs, bringing drugs in through the front door. You said, yeah, sure, I'll pass the kite regarding this, that, and the next thing. And there you go.
And you know what
So
else is really sad about that? Bringing it in through the front door. They're probably, maybe not in every case, but usually having like a family member do it, which is really sad because now they're going to get their family member involved in the criminal justice system.
Well, you've got your family members roped in. They're doing it. They've obviously
Mhm.
got some dysfunction going on. They're willing to do it. They're willing to put themselves at risk of going to jail
Yes.
for you, and then you've guilted them into it, and then you're asking them to put money on your books so you can buy the supplies you need to traffic the drugs and all
And
this
oh,
other
by the
stuff.
way, even when you get out of the gang, let's say it's 5 years later, and you go, and they'll say, "Oh, by the way, you got this support person that helped bring drugs into the prison for you, and now you're going to go live with them after transitional housing, or they're going to support you in some way." You
Big
know,
problem.
yeah, it just snowballs.
It's a big problem. Yeah, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, is that the mother that brought the drugs in for you with inside the burritos, like,
Yeah,
or sandwiches or whatever? Usually burritos. I don't know why the
that's
burrito
okay.
or the winners.
I get the idea.
Grandma,
We all get the idea,
asking
Elizabeth.
grandma to do it.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah,
or, and then someone else put her up to it, and unbeknownst to grandma, she's bringing drugs in, and then she's all frisked at the door and strip searched and told to leave the property, and it's just awful what you're
yeah,
doing. And you, just
yes,
because you're antisocial, you don't care about anybody else but you
exactly.
and your ego and your ego's problems in life.
Hmm. Oh man,
It's a big one.
it
So
is. Yes.
and like Joe says, if you're going to leave, it's all, get gone. Don't
Hmm.
be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now,
Yeah, cut the umbilical cord.
if you take 1 foot out, it's certainly a lot better than having 2 feet in. But if you need to take that, if your family member needs to take that intermediate step, take it, and then coast a little while, and then leave. But just remember, you don't get credit for 1 foot out for 5 years clean from the gang. It has to be all feet out. So even if you're 2 feet in and your seed is planted, your family member wants to go, start going to programs. Then just at least stop participating, and then you
Hmm.
could maybe get 1 foot out after that and keep going to programs, self-helps, to help you understand your personality flaws and why you're attracted to gangs and so on and so on. And then, it's a progression. It's a process. I shouldn't say progression, because
Hmm.
obsession, compulsion,
Yeah,
the other one I don't remember.
right.
Progression,
I can't remember it right now
obsession,
either.
compulsion, progression, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's from CGA. So again, it's
Mhm.
just a process. And then um, the other thing is, some people are all the way out. They finally get all the way out, but then they keep with the gang mentality. And what do we mean by that? Criminal thinking. They're still doing criminal things. So maybe like a restitution fraud or whatever. And that's when the commissioners are going to get after you and go, do you consider that gang activity? No, no, that had nothing to do with the gang. But then you're going to get nailed for not understanding the definition. So it kind of goes with you. And then some other gang member, you're like all the way out. And then someone knew you when, and 10 years later says, oh, yeah, they drop a confidential on you last week because they knew you. They knew you when. So you also have that. You assume the risk of that happening, even if you clean it all up. Someone could say something about you from before, and then it's current now, and you're having to address that. And that's one of those things that if you'd never joined the gang at all, it's like, well, I had no choice. I had to join the gang when I came to prison. I go, well, that's not true, because
Yeah, sure. I needed protection.
I have a lot of clients that didn't, and young that didn't. It's
Hmm.
all about mindset. It's all about mindset. So if you have really low self, your loved one has a really low self-worth, self-esteem, no courage to just say no, they're weak, they prey on the weak. And so they're at risk. And that's unfortunate, but very true. Anything else? What have I missed, Joe? I just dumped my whole desk here. That's okay.
Well, as you were speaking about the whole process of going like down, 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 it's like quicksand. Being in a gang is like quicksand.
Mhm.
And there's every rationale that they have for being in a gang, but if you have an indeterminate term and you want to be free someday to live life and be happy with your family and work, have a life, uh, you just don't want to. You want to stay away from the gang, and unfortunately, so many are so naive and they think that being in a gang is going to give them protection. It's going to give them anything, everything they want on the inside, including drugs. No, it's not going to work that way if ultimately your goal is to get out. You're going to have to quit at some point and have an extended amount of time away from the gang, time away from any kind of criminal thinking or write-ups or anything like that.
Yeah, and it's like the whole notion of protection. Well, it's only if you comply, and then when you
Yes. Oh
stop
yeah.
complying, the protection is going to end. And oftentimes, if you do one little slip, you break one of their rules, then you have to be part of their so-called discipline system, which just means they're going to commit violence on you. It's just not. It's very cult-like. It is very
Hmm.
cult-like. It is very difficult to leave. If your family member wants to leave, please support him or her, but mostly hims as much as you can.
Yes. Very well put.
What do we got next week? Anything else that you wanna talk about gangs?
I think we had a good discussion of gangs, and if people have any questions, obviously they can contact you or me. And
Mhm.
but I think hopefully they get the point that we were trying to make.
I mean, we talk sort of assuming that people understand this issue, and it would have been it's nice to have more input from people that don't really know what we're talking about to maybe ask some questions. But anyway, we're going to come back next week. What's the
Yes,
chapter next week? What are we
it's
doing?
about
Strategy 6.
self-discovery,
Mm,
which I think it's going on a more positive approach. Then I mean, you have to get rid of the bad, but then you have to also get involved in some of the positives, like self-discovery.
I like it. I like it. So now we're on a more of a positive trajectory here. It looks like,
Yes. Hmm.
which is fun. Yeah, you can't get paroled with RVRs, you can't get paroled with gang activity, you can't get paroled without doing programming, education. Education's necessary, of course, to do the programming if you can. Not all of our clients can do that, but where can everybody get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm at Jr. Haytas. That's JRHAYTAS at haytaslaw.com. Just just email me, and if you have any questions or any things you want to talk about regarding parole, and the parole process.
Yeah, and I want to thank all the listeners that listen. We don't have a lot. This is more of a resource, like I said, but anybody who tunes in, I appreciate it. And if there are any family members that have questions, put them in the comments. Please like and subscribe. And remember that we will be here next week, same time. We're getting more organized. It's been great with Joe because he's extremely dependable, shows up, does the show, enthusiastic, doesn't make a lot of noise in the background. So it's been excellent. I really appreciate it. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your participation.
Okay.
Okay. Have a wonderful Sunday, Joe.
You do as well, Elizabeth. All
Okay.
right.
And I'll talk to you soon, of course.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you.